Well, hello Spurs fans. Welcome back to Speaking Spurs with me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. It's over. Top four is pretty much over. Mathematically still possible, but let's face it, it's over. Chelsea need to win two more games to keep us out of reach. Leicester only need to win one to keep us out of reach. And let's not mention the fact that West Ham have one of the easier runs going into the end of the season. So that's over. Europa League, again, could be something we don't get into depending on the way results pan out. So today we have lost at Elland Road 3-1 to Leeds United. It's a hard one to take. And I think for a few reasons. We'll explain it all as we go through. But I'll just go through things like, the lineup, the gameplay, talk about some controversial stuff. Then the press conference, end of game interview. There is one from Dier as well that's meant to be coming out, but as I'm recording this, I can't be bothered to wait for it. Yeah, so we'll go through that. Lineup remain unchanged from the win against Sheffield United. So Lloris in goal, Serge Aurier and Reguilon out wide at the back, Dier and Alderweireld in the centre-back positions, Højbjerg and Lo Celso operating next to each other, with Dele in front, Bale, Son on the wings, and Kane up top. So straight away from the lineup, there may be of many people that were sitting there kind of happy that was the lineup, keeping it the way after that 4-0 win. Problem is, Sheffield United bottom of the league, Leeds United, although they were sitting in 11th going into the game, they're a much better outfit than what they were in that first half of the season. Bielsa has massively improved them defensively. They haven't had as many hammerings or games with ridiculous amounts of goals in the second half of the season. Well, at least go against them anyway, and that's because that defence has tightened up. They're still playing that very free attacking football, which we definitely saw today. But the lineup for me was a worry. To leave Tanguy Ndombele on the bench again after Lo Celso's performances recently, I don't understand it. What I get from Ryan Mason in his interviews is that he's saying he's basing it on the way people are training. Now, I, for one, when I go training, certainly am not the best trainer. Like, I'll put a lot of effort into any of the fitness aspects and things like that, but when it comes to actual gameplay itself, I'm one of these players that doesn't necessarily want to get injured, so I don't give my all. I also don't want to injure other players. And there are players like that are fantastic when it comes to a match day, not so good in training. Tanguy may be one of them, and he's so laid back anyway. I think sometimes his personality can be misconstrued for laziness. The same as we kind of had with Dimitar Berbatov when he was at the club, but not for a second did any of the Spurs fans have the audacity to call him lazy. He was just a fantastic player. I know Tanguy's been a bit indifferent over the last sort of month and a bit, but there's no question, On the Boy's a fantastic player, and I feel like had we put him in there today, things may have been different. I'm not too annoyed about Dele being in there. Obviously, we could have had some more energy about there. We'll talk about the relationship between Bale and Aurier in a bit. I just feel that didn't work up against this Leeds team today. So yeah, that was the lineup. There are a few annoyances today. VAR once again. We'll talk about that as we go through. But let's just talk about the goals themselves. So the first goal comes from them. Dallas, provided by Harrison, who I thought was excellent today. Absolutely excellent. I don't really think it was Aurier being poor. Obviously, we know he makes some rash decisions at times, but I feel like this was another classic example of Gareth Bale not getting back. I think because he had so much freedom against Sheffield United, he was maybe expecting it again today. Difference is, Leeds United battle, they run, and they worked really well down that side. So although you can say they pinpointed Aurier as a weakness, I don't think it was Aurier that was the weakness. I think the lack of cover was the weakness. Aurier was quite often left with a decision to make between going for the man on the ball and the man on the overlap. And when you're given that decision, as we saw with Doherty against Arsenal, you're just left with Nothing. You got no support. You're stranded. Whichever decision you make is going to be criticised as the wrong decision. You go to the man with the ball, he plays for the overlap. You go for the man with the overlap, the man on the ball has space and drives into a gap, and they probably work something on the edge of the box. But yeah, Harrison was excellent today. Worked really well. He crosses the ball towards goal. Reguilon gets onto it, almost scores an own goal. Lloris makes a fantastic save, ball comes out, and it is smashed home from close range to the roof of the net by Dallas. Now, the biggest problem with this goal isn't Reguilon nearly scoring an own goal. It's not the fact that there was nowhere to follow up with Dallas after Lloris makes the save. It's Eric Dier. And unfortunately, he had an interview where he kind of moaned about all the criticism that he was getting from the Spurs fans, saying sometimes it was unfair, that he's making mistake after mistake after mistake. Yeah, maybe he doesn't make loads and loads of mistakes, but again, like Aurier used to, there's that one mistake a game, and unfortunately this mistake has led to the goal. Now the problem is, Dier is in a great position as the ball comes in to just stick his foot out, send the ball either back where it comes from or out for a corner. He doesn't do that. He watches the ball go past him and turns out the way of the ball, which means Reguilon then has to deal with something that he didn't expect to have to deal with. And because he's not completely ready for it, that's what makes him effectively shoot. But Lloris does fantastically well from there. But Eric Dier, it's just poor timing for you. You come out with that interview, and I understand completely what he's talking about. There are times where it's not really been his mistakes. It's players in and around, midfielders not getting back, people not going with their runners, which has forced Eric Dier into making decisions where a mistake is going to happen, but there was mistakes that led to his mistake. So I get it, and I do think we over-criticise some of these things sometimes. But this time, you've got to be stronger in there. You have to make that decision to put your foot in there and just send it away. So yeah, that one's on you, Dier. We get back into the game. Sonny, 25 minutes in, he has his goal. It's great work from Dele Alli, and I felt that he had a fairly bright start to the game, as he did against Sheffield United. It was one of them where as the game wore on, we saw less and less of him. And I think that comes down to his lack of playing time. Again, I'm not going to criticise Dele for this. It's not his... Well, it's kind of his fault that he probably wasn't playing in the first place, but certainly from a fitness aspect and match sharpness, I can't really criticise him too much. He was willing... I feel like the shape didn't necessarily help us. Dele quite often was way too far forward, where I think we needed an extra man in there to help, because Lo Celso is not the most natural defensive midfielder next to Højbjerg there. So there was that little bit of maybe Dele could have dropped 5-10 yards to help out. But in particular, this goal here, Dele's in space, and he sees the run of Harry Kane, very unselfish, sprints right across, taking the defender with him, which gives Sonny a nice clear gap to run into. Dele slots the ball through. Sonny comes onto it, clinically finishes into the back of the net. Now with this, the ball itself that Dele plays through, it did take a deflection, which actually slowed it down, which gives Sonny more time as he's coming onto it to pick his spot and go with it. I still think had the deflection not have happened, the ball would have gone in with a little bit more pace. Sonny still would have sprinted onto it and still slotted it home. I think the result is the same. The good thing from Dele is that he's in that number 10 role. His knowledge of watching Son and Kane with their runs, he's managed to pick out the right ball, the right time, the right player. Bang, we're in the game. Fairly open game. Leeds pretty much are open every time they play. They're open to attack. They're open to be hit on the break. It's just the way it is with them, but they were fighting really hard. Like both their wingers today, I thought were excellent. So let's not put this down to the fact that we were just poor. They were very good. There is a reason why nobody in the top six has beat them at home today. Has beat them at home this season. Unfortunately, we just happen to be the one of the big six teams that decides to not have a draw. We lose. But yeah, 42 minutes in, and they're 2-1 up. It's Patrick Bamford. Harrison again, playing really well here. He rolls the ball into Alioski on the overlap on the left. A low cross, which is turned in by Bamford. And this one, for me, this is where they really exposed, not Aurier, but that left-hand side. Gareth Bale just doesn't track back. And I think There was just way too much freedom against Sheffield United, and it has caused him to do it. If he gets back, there's more pressure. Do they still score the goal? I don't know. But it's also the awareness of the other midfielders. Like, one of the things that we have when Sissoko plays, he knows that Aurier is going to be targeted when we have players going forward on the wing and we're hit on a counter-attack. So what Sissoko does really well, he drifts across and acts as a support. Problem is, with Giovanni Lo Celso playing deeper, he's an attack-minded player. So he's not automatically going to think, I need to jump across and help out the fullback, because in his mind, he knows that Gareth should be doing that. And that didn't happen. And it created us many, many problems over the course of the game. Yeah, so half-time then hits. We come back out slightly more energised. We're playing a bit better. Leeds, was it that they weren't playing as well, or just the fact that they didn't expect us to come out as well as we did? I don't know, but we're taking a bit more control in the game. We have chances, there's changes. We see the introduction of Lucas Moura and Eric Lamela. They come on for Bale and Dele Alli, who in this second half weren't really involved as much. So pretty understandable as to why they were replaced. And, you know, things start happening. These are two guys with a decent amount of energy that have really affected games. And I am actually shocked that a change wasn't made slightly earlier with at least one of those two coming on, just to add some energy into the game, a bit of bite in midfield. And although Lamela's quality was not as good as it has been over the course of the season, I feel like he just added something to the game. And if you have that energy from the beginning of the game, or certainly earlier in the second half, there's a lot more damage to be done. And I feel like it gives Leeds more problems, more to think about. So maybe that's something we could have thought about in the beginning. But I don't know. But 84 minutes in, the game is done and dusted. Now, this is one of those where, do you know what? I don't mind us conceding the third goal in the end, because we were busy attacking. We were creating chances towards the end of the game. Although our final balls in, or the end product of a shot, weren't particularly fantastic, the fact is we were attacking. And it's that same old story of waiting too little too late to put the attack on. And, you know, it's going to leave you open. We were really pushing for it. They get a breakthrough with Rafinha down the left after a poor Aurier header. He squares it to Rodrigo, who's 10 yards out, and just plants it home. But, you know, it is what it is. That third goal, it doesn't really bother me too much. I think we all knew that Leeds were going to get more chances as we began to attack more. We did have a goal disallowed, which would have put us 2-1 up. The Harry Kane offside. VAR decided to put it offside. Ryan Mason is not happy about it. It's one of these that I'm not happy with. When they draw a line that happens to be so close to the other line, it's ridiculous. It's one of those, again, where, in line with the defence, Harry Kane is only ahead of this player. Bearing in mind it's not the defender that's going to be marking Harry Kane anyway. But when you draw the line across, Harry Kane is offside by literally a big toe. And this is where it annoys me. You're not gaining anything extra by a big toe. You're punishing us because when you look at the frame, the defender's foot is side on. Harry Kane's foot is front on. Had the defender's foot been front on instead of side on, Harry Kane would have been onside. So this is something that they definitely need to look at. Hopefully there is a rule change for next season. And I know we're not the only team to be punished in this way. There's been many people punished. You know, there was an offside given for pointing to where somebody wanted the ball. Like, that's ridiculous. That is not gaining you an advantage. It's definitely something that needs to be looked at. But yeah, that was the game really. Like, we did create chances. We just weren't clinical enough. And it's just such a shame. We've got the players with the ability. Like, Sonny had a chance where normally you'd expect him to bury it or at least make the goalkeeper work. He didn't. He's out on the left. He smashes it. Tries to curl it. And it just doesn't work. It ends up actually hitting the side netting, but the back of the side netting. So it's just not good enough. I don't know. I don't really know what to say. For me, it just came down to our hunger. It just wasn't there. I understand that Ryan Mason wants us to play more of a pressing game, you know, which we did try to do. But the problem with that is, and this stems back to Jose's way of playing. The players to do it at this stage of the season, even though they used to do it under Pochettino, we did see towards the end of Pochettino's reign that kind of tailed off. We were not pressing as high. We weren't pressing from the front. We weren't pressing as effectively. And pressing is one of those things. If you've got one or two players that aren't quite doing it right, it doesn't work at all. And you are better off going just man marking or going zonal. And I feel like maybe the whole team wasn't quite on side with that. It didn't really work at all. So it's one of them where I can understand what Ryan Mason is trying to achieve, but he just didn't get it from the players today. I feel like they weren't ready. We're not fit enough, certainly, to compete with Leeds all over the pitch. You have to have those players that are willing to fight. And that's where I think the mistake was made with Lamela and Mora maybe not being in that lineup. You know, they are fit guys and they will run themselves into the ground no matter whether they're playing well, whether they're playing bad. They will fight for the team. You will never see them walking. So I feel like there was an opportunity missed there. But I kind of understand why Ryan's gone with the lineup he went for. It just didn't work today. So, yeah, as I've said, Harrison was absolutely fantastic for them today. VAR, once again, controversial. Some poor decisions in the final third for us. Harry Kane, right? He was poor against Sheffield United. And he had moments today. But I feel like there was aspects that were poor again. There was a lot of times where Harry was actually caught on the ball. And I don't mean caught on the ball where he's trying to do something and gets tackled. There were times where he had the ball and just didn't really do anything with it at all. And the player would step in and nick it. But yeah, another hard day at the office, really. So, top four, over, Europa League, may not happen. We do have to remember it's not always the worst thing in the world not getting top four. You just have to look to Chelsea. The season they had no European football at all. They won the league. I'm not saying we're going to win the league. It just makes it a bit easier to have a better run in the league because players remain fitter. They have more time to recover in between games. And as we've seen this season, we played a lot of football. And it's something we have struggled with. We haven't looked as fit as we did underneath Pochettino. I think that has something to do with the way that Jose trains as well. I don't think his sessions are as high intensity. And we just got outrun today, out-battled, the passion. And it's annoying in the sense that you know that if you don't win this game, the season is effectively over. We mathematically have a chance, but we don't really realistically have a chance. I feel like there needed to be more fight. And as I've said before, I'm a believer that players should run themselves into the ground. And if they need to come off, they need to come off and be replaced. I don't like this conserving energy or moments where they think, maybe not this time. Just push yourself. Fight for every second ball. Make those runs even if you don't think the ball is going to make it over. All it takes is a slip from a defender or something wrong. You've got to remember it was hammering it down with rain for large portions of the game. So the ground was wet. The ball was there to be slid through. Anything can happen. But I don't know. Without Hugo Lloris today, it probably ends up being a much bigger scoreline. I think he was fantastic at times, made some great saves to keep us in it. If we just talk about what Ryan Mason said when he was interviewed at the end of the game, he said, we weren't clinical enough at times. He can't believe the offside was given, and they did ask him if he'd actually seen it back, and he said yes. His opinion didn't change from the first, second or 10th time that he saw it. And at that moment in the game, to put us 2-1, it completely changes the outlook of the game. He feels like we pushed on in the second half. You know, their third goal comes because we were hit on the break because at that time we just had to go for it. He felt we had control in the second half. We had some big moments with Son, Coco and Kane. Coco is Lamela for all those that don't know. That's his nickname. Not easy to win in the Premier League as we've seen all season from teams. And now we need to focus on the next game. But yeah, I think there were things that he got wrong today. I'm not going to criticise him too much. He's new to this. And I think he's going for what he sees as the more experienced players, certainly within the squad. But it all just went a bit wrong for us today. It is what it is. We move on to the next game. And what else looks more ridiculous now is that ridiculous £60 ticket cost for the home game against Villa. I think what we allowed 10,000 fans, and it's come out today. I think that Burnley are going to allow their fans into the stadium without paying a penny. So we're expected as fans to pay £60 to go to a game that is not a Category A game. Aston Villa would certainly not have been classed under Category A this season. I mean, I'm a season ticket holder anyway, so, you know, in a normal season, my games are all paid for. I don't look at value between games. I just work it out that it's roughly like £55 a game, no matter who we're playing. But to charge £60 for a game that wouldn't be classed as Category A, when we've had no football season, bearing in mind they're going to take money over the bar, with food, in the shop. Like, they're going to make money in that game, and I just feel like £60 a bit ridiculous. And it looks even worse, the fact that Burnley are giving their tickets away for free. But I feel like they could have just done 30 quid. You know, you're still going to make a decent chunk of money. And then people have, no, they've got to pay to get to the game, like train fares, petrol, buses, taxis, Ubers, whatever. They've got to pay this money to get there. Then they've got to pay for their food and drink. And I will say, though, inside the stadium, Spurs' drinks prices and food prices are actually reasonable for a football match. It's actually cheaper to have some drinks in the stadium than it is outside. Like, most places you go are like a flat £5 for a drink. Spurs, you can get a pint for £4.50, which is actually cheaper than most pints that I can buy in Chelmsford, where I am. Most places are £5 plus for a pint in Chelmsford. So, you know, they're going to make a shed ton of money anyway. Don't be so greedy. Just reward the fans, especially after this blooming the Super League crap. Like, and Daniel Levy hasn't come out and published an apology. And then you have the audacity to charge your fans 60 quid for this game. Like, what is wrong with you? And on top of that, he must have known going into the end of the season we would be very lucky to get Champions League football. Like, it does my head in. I'll tell you what we'll do. Like, if you've managed to stick around this far into the video, if you are ENIC out, or you think it's ridiculous to charge £60 for this home game, I want you to hit the thumbs up on this video. Hit the thumbs up. We'll see how many we'll get, and that will let me know, of all the people that have viewed it, how many of you think it is unreasonable for ENIC, after everything they've done, to have the audacity to charge 60 quid for this game. Comment as well. Throw in comments about what you think about this. Are you going to the protests? Let me know. I want to hear from you guys. Let's get interacting. But yeah, that's all I've got to say today, really. Disappointing. We move on to the next game. It's going to make it hard for them to get a manager of top quality now, without the lure of Champions League football, maybe even Europa League football. It's going to come down to how much they're willing to pay him, which is ineffective as well, considering we're not going to have the money coming from the Champions League or possibly the Europa League. So it makes that more difficult as well, which means it's probably us, the fans, that are going to get punished some way. But yeah, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. As I said, we'll do the experiment with the thumbs up to let me know about the ENIC out and the £60 fee. And you can even turn on bell notifications so you get notified when the next video goes live. So disappointing today, but we move on. Look to the next game. Stay safe, guys, and always, come on you Spurs.